The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
My name is John, and the International Criminal Court is now in session. It is August 4th, 2024. We have officially arrived in the 8th month of the year, and today we are going to take a look at the front line in Ukraine, but also, most importantly, maybe discuss some other things too. Now, without adding in any more filler, let's start. So, the Zaporozhye direction, Robotone. The Russians have been advancing north of Robotone for a while now. Like in this area here, like they're really pushing away from Robotone itself just to ensure that the Ukrainians aren't able to attack again in that vicinity. And to be honest, I don't expect another battle for Robotone in the future. Maybe they might try again in the Pirozhaki direction, maybe try to take the rest of Kamyansky, but otherwise I don't really expect too much to happen in the Zaporozhye direction for quite some time. Maybe the Russians might make some small pushes here and there towards the town of Orkiv or Orikov, but I'm not going to really expect anything too special at this time for either the Russians or the Ukrainians in this direction. Now, in the Velika Novosilka direction, the Russians have been advancing north of Orozhaine, which was recently captured by the Russians last month. And with that, they are now basically within striking distance of the town of Velika Novosilka. Russians have reportedly started advancing in this area here, like north of Orozhaine, and have already taken the fortifications that were also north of the village itself. And from what I understand, the Russians are going to attack the village of Bladotne or Blagdotne. And I wouldn't be shocked if any of these villages here, which goes up to Velika Novosilka, easily fall. But I don't think the Russians are focusing too much on that right now, because the main focus right now for the Russians in the south-central Donetsk direction is, of course, the Ugledar area. Now, as all of you know by now, in the last video or so, the Russians have cut off the 00532 road that separates Konstantinivka and Ugledar. And because of this, the Ukrainians will no longer be able to supply Ugledar through conventional means. They will have to be forced to use these rugged, unreliable roads here, which are just north of Ugledar itself. And then maybe potentially they're going to have to supply the town through the fields too, which would also be difficult, because then the Russians would easily be able to get everything on drones, which in turn would lead to the destruction of potential equipment that could be used in a defense of Ugledar, and heavy casualties for Ukrainians too. But yeah, big loss. And in the town of Konstantinivka, the Russians are reportedly advancing from the southeast corner within Konstantinivka, and apparently, as far as other maps go, the Russians have already made some advances in Konstantinivka, though I honestly would prefer to wait for more news that could come out maybe in the next couple of days or so, just to see if any of this is confirmed. But yes, the Russians are not only in Konstantinivka, but they are advancing quite well, and so far in a better pace than they did in Novomny Kalivka. In the Krasnogorivka direction, or the Mariinka direction more like, the Russians have further solidified their control of Krasnogorivka proper, and are now advancing on the outskirts of the town itself. They are already advancing in the far north neighborhoods of Krasnogorivka, and because of how lowland these areas are, and because of how sparsely populated they are, don't be shocked if within the next week or so, the entirety of Krasnogorivka comes under complete Russian control, which would in turn put Hyerk and Kharkivka in danger of being attacked by Russia. and of course Karakove. But yes, Krasnokarivka is mostly under Russian control, though there's still some streets to be taken before the capture can be fully official. Now in the Pokrovsk direction, no longer the former Avdiivka direction, that is, just to be more specific, the Russians have further cemented their control over Novoselivka Persha, and they're now advancing on the village of Mezove and perhaps Skuchne. The Russians are aiming to take this final pocket here with Mezove and Skuchne, and after that, they should be able to advance not only on Zelene or Zelene, but also advance on these other villages here. Mikolaivka, Novozelene, Zavidny, Peach, and Kumisvika. So apologies if I pronounce them all wrong, but don't be surprised if the Russians take Zelene very quickly, and then maybe domino by domino, all these villages will fall easily to Russia. And then also, after the fall of Vasily, the Russians are now slowly but surely advancing towards Rudivka or Hrudivka, and are in the process of contesting for the village of Surivka. Now, as soon as Surivka falls, along with these collection of villages here, Russians then can perhaps start maybe the battle for Novogrudivka or Novohrudivka, which is this commie block infested town located just north of Saladove, which is like one of the final defense barriers before you enter the cities of Mayornograd and Pokrovsk. But yeah, also, Ivanovka or Ivanivka, half of it is already under Russian control. So this area might fall fast along with these other three here. They're all definitely going to fall fast because there's nothing really there to defend. And also, it's lowland areas too. Ukrainians are probably going to cross the Kazny Torets River or reservoir and maybe take up defensive positions here. But yeah, they're definitely not going to defend these villages. They're just going to go up north and then maybe try to hold their ground for as long as possible. But I'm not expecting them to really defend these areas hard. They just won't. The Russians have still yet to advance on Vazdizhnika, but they haven't advanced on there yet, even though they're probably going to soon. Probably after the taking of all these villages here, then they're going to make that crucial advance towards the road. The T0504 road, which separates Pokrovsk and Konstantinivka. The big one, by the way, that is in the Slavyansk-Kramatorsk metropolitan area. In New York, the Russians continue the advance, and they're getting closer to Zalazhny, which is just a couple kilometers away or kilometers away before this whole area here is cut off for the Ukrainians, and they will have either no choice but to surrender, die, or, well, I don't know, I guess evacuate before it gets really ugly. But yeah, half of New York is under Russian control right now, including the, I guess a part of the industrial area is now under their control too, though they have yet to enter this. But half of New York is under Russian control, and more of it is going to fall within a matter of time, considering the fast lightning advance that's going on in the TORETSK direction, which reminds me, most of Zalazhny, like 90% or so of it, is now under Russian control. The Citadel or commie blocks in this area here are all under Russian control now, and Russians have reportedly already started advancing towards the waste heap or the junkyard within Zalazhny too. And also, I've heard reports that the Russians have not only bypassed it, but they have entered the city of TORETSK itself, which would be a huge blow, because then this would mean that the Russians would be very, very close to not only achieving one of their biggest goals within Donetsk Oblast this year, but it would get them within striking distance of Konstantinivka too. But yeah, the Russians have taken more control of Pivnichny. In fact, earlier this afternoon, the Russians have reportedly taken control of these eastern neighborhoods too, and it won't surprise me if the rest of these fall under Russian control by tomorrow. At least that's how Syriac is going to do things. But as far as I know, Pivnichny, for the most part, has fallen to Russia, and it's only a matter of time before the battle for Toretsk proper begins, though they got to get not just past this industrial area and waste heap or junkyard here, but they also got to get past this major commie block area here before entering Toretsk as a whole. Though, arguably, if the Russians take these commie blocks here, then Battle of Toretsk has already been decided. Ukrainians may not even stick around for much longer there. Now in Chasiv Yar, the Russians have crossed the Sovietsky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, and it is now confirmed with geolocations that the Russians have not only crossed the small river, but they have also secured a bridgehead there. So this means that the Russians are now in Chasiv Yar proper. They're not just in the micro canal district anymore. They are now in, like, literally the proper, like, main part of Chasiv Yar itself. It's now 100% confirmed, especially by Deep State UA. So yeah, the battle for Chasiv Yar proper has begun, even though, well, to be honest, the battle for Chasiv Yar has been ongoing since April. But now that the canal district has been taken, especially with the Russians crossing the river here, we are now officially at the beginning, potentially, of the end for Chasiv Yar. And the Russians, in my opinion, have the advantage at this time. They do. Not much really going on in the Seversk direction. Sorry about that if I kind of messed up a bit. But in the Kupiansk direction, much of the same, even though I have heard Ukrainians are counterattacking and have successfully, for the most part, ousted the Russians from Makivka, though I'm expecting them to counterattack in this area in the future. And also, in the Kharkiv direction, nothing much going on in the Lipsy sector. Everything is literally on hold. And in Volchansk, the Russians are continuing to advance in the Citadel area. They have reportedly now taken over 50% of the commie blocks within Volchansk itself, within, like, northern Volchansk. But Ukrainians are reportedly counterattacking here and are trying to retake ground so that they could potentially kick the Russians out. But now that the Citadel is in danger of falling to the Russians, all of their gains within Volchansk recently, like especially in the eastern section here, might go to waste. Because as soon as that Citadel there falls, northern Volchansk is cooked. Like, Russians are going to easily take it without much of a fight. So yeah. Now, before I close out the video, there's a couple things I want to talk about, and especially that is the F-16s. It is now confirmed 100% that the F-16s have arrived in Ukraine, like the first 10 of them. And apparently, throughout 2024, the Ukrainians are going to get around like 24 F-16s, and then throughout 2025, they will be eventually working towards NATO's goal of delivering them over 79 F-16s, even though Zelensky himself has claimed that they need like 100 plus F-16s in order to defeat Russia, as he claims. Now, personally for me, I think it's too little too late for the F-16s to arrive in Ukraine because, well, it's been 2 years, and a lot of Ukrainians have since died since the start of the Russian invasion of the country, and a lot of more guys are dying now just for defending the lines that they're trying to hold within Donbas and Kharkiv. So, I think it's too little too late. Though I will say the F-16s will likely be used more likely for, like, air defense, maybe? To defend Kiev, to defend Kharkiv, to defend Lvov, Chernigov, Sumy, Zaporozhye, etc. Maybe Dnipropetrovsk from Russian strikes or drone attacks, but otherwise, I cannot see the F-16s being used for offensive maneuvers. Sorry. So, yeah. And for the last thing I want to mention, I have heard reports that YouTube is on the brink of being blocked within Russia itself. I repeat, YouTube is on the brink of being blocked in Russia. So, what's going on? Apparently, internet speeds regarding, like, YouTube itself, like, YouTube within Russia is, like, for the most part, no longer usable. A lot of guys have been complaining about the speeds there. Like, they are having a lot of issues accessing the website, like, and not even their VPNs are working out too fine either. So, yeah, YouTube is looking pretty cooked in Russia. And as far as I know, the Russian government is promoting alternative sites, like, for their users to go to, like, their internet population to go to. And, for example, I'm, of course, talking about our YouTube, which is a kind of a mediocre, crappy knockoff of YouTube that posts a lot of pro-Russian government stuff. I don't know if I would recommend using it. Then there's VK Video, which is essentially just like the video sort of like umbrella of like VK, which is like the most popular social media website within Russia itself. And also it's sort of like seen as their own version of Facebook. And also, don't forget, there's Telegram, too. Like, a lot of Russians can just use Telegram if they want pretty much anything that they want. Though, obviously, they're going to have a difficult time finding certain channels that they want to watch. And also, another thing to point out is that Telegram, depending on where you are in the world, can just block certain channels. Like, that's it. I even heard iOS and Android might get banned too, just because they're like American-made software or something. That would be a little that would be going a little overboard if you ask me. Though I wouldn't be shocked within a decade or so from now. More, I guess, Huawei's are being used than iPhones or Android phones, I guess. But it wouldn't shock me. But the one video site that I think that actually looks really good is Platforma, or Platform, I think. That's what they called it. It looks almost exactly like YouTube. Like, it's like 75 to like 90% similar to YouTube. So yeah, maybe that one could be the YouTube alternative that Russian internet users are looking for. But it's gotta suck if you're Russian right now. I mean, you gotta deal with these China-like censorship laws. But they obviously want to keep the population not just controlled, but they also don't want, I guess, any opposition groups to take, I don't know, any sort of like control of or over like the information space within Russia itself, like proper. And yeah. But yeah, I think Platform is definitely going to be the YouTube alternative that Russian speakers may want to consider. I'll probably review it at some point when I decide to do that, because I heard it's in beta right now, even though you can access it publicly. But for now, though, keep an eye on in the news regarding the future of YouTube within Russia, and especially those F-16s within Ukraine, even though I said I think it's too little too late for them. And also, yeah, the front line within Ukraine itself, keep an eye on that, because things are getting hot. The Battle of TORETSK is about to start, and Russians are getting closer and closer to Pokrovsk. So anyway, I hope all of you guys who have seen the video today found it informative, interesting, and maybe entertaining, I guess. I don't know. And I hope to see you all next time. So have a great day and stay safe. Take care. Peace out.